I had always prided myself on my ability to read people. I worked in a job where that skill was necessary. Dealing with all kinds of personalities every day made me a little more observant than most. I could tell when someone was nervous, when they were lying, when they were hiding something. But with her, Valerie, it was like she had a whole different set of rules. I remember that morning so clearly. The day started just like any other. Coffee, the rush of getting out of bed, getting to work. But something about the air that day felt different. It wasn't the weather. It wasn't a feeling of impending doom. It was just off. When I walked into the kitchen, Valerie was already there, sipping her coffee and scrolling through her phone. She didn't even look up when I walked in. Normally, we'd exchange a smile, maybe a joke, but not that day. Her face was blank, her eyes distant. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She didn't respond right away, and when she did, her voice was flat, distant. "Morning." I watched her for a moment, trying to read the situation. I couldn't figure it out. I could feel the disconnect, but I didn't know why it was there. Maybe it was the long hours I'd been putting in at work. Maybe it was the stress. But I had a nagging feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. "Everything okay?" I asked, leaning against the counter. She nodded quickly, not even looking up from her phone. "Yeah, just busy with work stuff." Her response was so automatic, it didn't feel genuine. I could feel the tension growing between us, thickening the air. And then, almost without thinking, I said something I never would have said before. "You're acting weird. What's going on?" Her fingers paused on her phone screen, and for the first time that morning, she looked at me. Really looked at me. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if she was weighing whether to respond. But then she just shrugged, as if nothing was wrong. "I'm fine, Sam. Seriously." But I wasn't buying it. She had said that before, and every time she had said it, it had been a warning, a sign that things weren't as perfect as they appeared. Something shifted in me. I could feel it, that feeling in my chest that told me this wasn't just a passing moment. It was something bigger, something that had been building up for weeks, months, maybe even longer. "Are you sure?" I pressed, my voice softer but more insistent. I hated that I was doing this, hated that I felt like I was prying into her life, but something told me I had to. Valerie stood up from the table abruptly, placing her coffee cup down with an air of finality. "Yes, Sam, I'm sure. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a lot to do today." Her tone was sharp. It was a tone I hadn't heard from her before. I felt a cold rush of unease slide down my spine. Was she shutting me out? The way she spoke, the way she distanced herself from me. It was like she was already miles away, and we hadn't even had a real conversation yet. But I wasn't going to let it slide. I couldn't. "Valerie, wait." I started, but before I could finish my sentence, she turned to face me with an expression I couldn't place. It was a mix of frustration, irritation, and something else, something colder. "I'm tired of this, Sam," she said, cutting me off. Her words were deliberate, controlled, and it hit me like a slap in the face. "I don't know what you want from me. I'm not going to keep explaining myself. You need to figure things out." She wasn't shouting. She wasn't even raising her voice. It was the calmness in her words, the calculated detachment, that sent a chill through me. I stood there, frozen. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what was happening. This wasn't the Valerie I knew. She had always been the one to joke around, to tease, to keep things light. But now, she was someone I didn't recognize. Before I could even open my mouth to respond, she turned and walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there alone with my thoughts. I watched her go, the door closing behind her with a soft click, and that's when the knot in my stomach grew even tighter. Something was wrong, deeply wrong, and no matter how hard I tried to shake it off, I couldn't ignore the feeling that something huge was about to change. I thought about calling her back, asking her to come back, to talk, but I didn't. Something inside me told me that if I didn't figure this out myself, if I didn't confront it head on, then it would eat me alive. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the beginning of something I couldn't control, and that terrified me. The rest of that day was like a blur. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't stop thinking about Valerie's coldness. I tried to shake it off, but it lingered in my mind like a shadow that refused to go away. Her words echoed in my head, the way she had dismissed me so easily, like I didn't matter. When I got home that evening, the house was eerily quiet. Valerie's car was in the driveway, but I didn't hear the usual sounds of her moving around inside. Normally, when I'd come home, She'd be making dinner or getting ready to watch something on TV. But today, nothing. I found her in the living room, sitting on the couch, staring at her phone. She didn't even look up when I walked in. My stomach twisted. This wasn't just a bad day anymore. Something had shifted, and I didn't know how to fix it. "Valerie," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She didn't answer. I stepped closer, standing in front of her. "Valerie, talk to me." She finally looked up at me, and for the first time all day, her eyes met mine. But there was nothing in them. No warmth, no love, just emptiness. A coldness I hadn't seen before. "What do you want me to say, Sam?" Her voice was almost mocking, like she was tired of this whole thing. "You already know what's going on." I felt my chest tighten. "What's going on, Valerie?" "Because I don't know what's happening. You're shutting me out, and I don't know why." She sighed and leaned back against the couch, as if she was exhausted by the conversation before it had even started. "Maybe it's because I'm tired, Sam. Tired of pretending that everything is fine when it's not. Tired of being the only one putting in the effort." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I opened my mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I wanted to defend myself, to explain that I was trying, that I didn't know where all of this was coming from, but it felt like there was nothing left to say. "I don't even know who you are anymore," she continued, her voice growing colder with each word. "You're just distant, always so focused on your job, on everything else. But when was the last time you actually looked at me, Sam? Really looked at me?" I didn't have an answer. I hadn't been paying attention, had I? I had been so caught up in my routine, my work, my own thoughts that I'd missed the subtle signs, the little cracks in our relationship. Valerie wasn't just upset with me. She was broken, and I hadn't noticed it until it was too late. "I don't know what you want from me," I said, the frustration building in my chest. "Tell me, please." Valerie shook her head, her expression turning bitter. "I wanted a partner, Sam. I wanted someone who would be there for me, someone who would notice when I'm hurting. But instead, I'm just here, doing everything alone." I wanted to argue, to tell her I was trying, but the words wouldn't come. I wasn't sure if I had ever really been there for her, not in the way she needed. All the times I thought I was doing the right thing, working hard, paying the bills, keeping a roof over our heads, hadn't meant a thing to her. She didn't want my work, she wanted me. I sat down beside her, the space between us feeling wider than it ever had. "I don't know how we got here, Valerie, but I'm willing to fight for us. If you're willing to try, I'll try too." She didn't answer right away. The silence stretched on, thick and suffocating. Finally, she stood up, shaking her head. "It's not that simple, Sam. I've already made up my mind." I stood up too, my heart pounding in my chest. "What does that mean? What do you mean you've made up your mind?" She looked at me, a sad smile playing on her lips. "It means I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep waiting for you to figure it out." And just like that, everything I thought I knew about our relationship, about her, came crashing down. Valerie wasn't just upset. She was leaving. I could feel it, the finality in her voice, the coldness in her eyes. She was already gone, even if she was still standing in front of me. My mind raced, panic setting in. "Wait. Valerie, please. Don't do this." But she didn't stop. She walked toward the door, her bag slung over her shoulder, and in that moment, I realized that nothing I said would change her mind. "I'll be gone by morning," she said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "This is over, Sam." And with that, she was gone. The door clicked shut behind her, leaving me standing there, frozen, unsure of what to do next. Everything had changed in an instant. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I had, was gone. And I was left alone, holding on to nothing but a memory of something that no longer existed. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. Valerie was gone, and her absence hit me harder than I expected. I kept telling myself it was just a rough patch, that things would get better, but deep down, I knew something had shifted forever. There was no going back now. The house felt emptier, quieter, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was just going through the motions, waiting for something to happen. My work had lost its usual distractions. I'd sit in front of my computer, my mind constantly drifting back to her. Every room I entered seemed to echo her absence. It was like she had taken every part of me with her when she left. I tried calling her. Once, twice, 3 times. But she didn't answer. The voicemail was always the same. "Hey, it's Valerie. I can't take your call right now. Leave a message." But I didn't leave one. What was there to say? I had no idea what to even ask for. She had made it clear there was no room for compromise. I knew I had messed up. I wasn't blind to that. But what had I done? I wasn't some awful person. Sure, I was a bit of a workaholic, but wasn't that what a partner was supposed to do? Provide? Take care of the bills, the house, the responsibilities? But was that all she wanted from me? Or had I missed something? I kept replaying that last conversation in my head, trying to figure out where it had gone wrong. Valerie's face, the look in her eyes when she said she was done, kept coming back to me like a haunting image. I wanted to believe she was just angry, that she didn't mean it. But what if she did? I couldn't sleep. I spent my nights staring at the ceiling, my thoughts racing. The worst part? I didn't even know where she had gone. She hadn't left me any clues, no warning. It was as if she just disappeared. One moment, we were talking about small things, making plans for the future, and the next, she was gone, and I was left with nothing but questions. On the fourth day, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Valerie. My heart skipped a beat as I clicked it open. Maybe she was reaching out? Maybe this was my chance to fix things, to finally understand what had happened. But when I read the message, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Sam, I'm sorry. I just can't do this anymore. I don't know what I want, but I can't be with you. Please don't try to contact me. I need to figure things out on my own. Goodbye. I read it again. And again. The words felt like they were written in some other language, something I couldn't comprehend. She said goodbye, just like that. After everything we had been through, after all the years we spent together, she just said goodbye. I didn't even know how to react. The numbness set in, creeping over me until all I could feel was a hollow ache in my chest. She had been so sure, so final. It wasn't just a breakup. It was as if she had already moved on, leaving me behind in the dust. I wanted to believe this was temporary, that maybe she was just going through something. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. The worst part was realizing I didn't know who she had become. The woman who had shared her dreams with me, who laughed at my stupid jokes, was no longer the person I was texting. She was a stranger. The silence between us was deafening. Every hour that passed felt like a year. I tried to fill the void with meaningless distractions, but it didn't work. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't escape the reality that Valerie wasn't coming back. And yet, I couldn't let go of the nagging question that kept me awake at night. Why? Why had she really left? I tried to distract myself with work again, but it wasn't the same. The moments when I should have been focused were interrupted by flashes of memories. I could still see her face, her laugh, the way she would get so passionate about the smallest things. It was like I was losing not just her, but everything I had thought we were building together. And the worst part? I still had no answers. It's strange how silence can feel like a living thing, pressing down on you, suffocating you in ways you can't describe. That's what it felt like in the days after Valerie left. Every conversation, every distraction, felt meaningless. I kept thinking I was losing my mind. Then, something happened that I never saw coming. I was sitting in the kitchen one night, trying to distract myself with work, checking emails, organizing files. But I wasn't really paying attention to any of it. The background hum of my computer screen was the only noise in the house. The silence felt heavy, oppressive. That's when my phone buzzed again. I almost didn't check it, thinking it was just another one of those empty notifications. But when I glanced at the screen, I froze. It was a text from an unknown number. Sam, I know you don't know me, but we need to talk. This is important. At first, I thought it was spam or some kind of mistake. But something about the message caught my attention. The wording was careful, almost urgent. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach as I typed back. Who is this? The reply came almost immediately. It's Derek, Valerie's boyfriend. My world spun. For a second, I couldn't process what I had just read. Boyfriend? She had moved on that quickly? I had always known something was wrong, but this? This was beyond anything I could have imagined. What do you mean, Valerie's boyfriend? I texted back, my fingers trembling. The next few messages came quickly. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think you need to hear me out. Valerie and I have been seeing each other for months now. She didn't want to tell you. She said it was complicated. I didn't know how to handle this, but I can't let her do this to you. The words on the screen blurred as I read and reread them, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't a joke. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Valerie, the woman I had trusted with everything, had been seeing someone else for months. I felt my pulse racing, my hands shaking. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The reply came fast. Because you deserve the truth. I'm not proud of it, but she needs to own up to what she's done. I don't want to be the one to break this to you, but you need to know. I sat there, staring at the phone screen, my mind spinning. 1,000 thoughts raced through me, none of them making any sense. Valerie had been seeing someone else behind my back. Not just anyone, Derek. A name I didn't recognize, but that didn't matter. The truth was clear. She had lied to me. For months. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at the messages. My world had just shattered in the most unexpected way possible. Valerie had betrayed me. She hadn't just left me. She had been living a double life. I needed answers. I needed to talk to Valerie. I needed to hear her explain herself, to tell me why she had done this, how she could have kept this from me for so long. But deep down, I knew that wouldn't happen. She wasn't going to come back and apologize. She was too far gone. I felt sick, betrayed, lost. The door had been shut, and now I was standing outside, trying to piece together a reality I didn't even recognize anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The revelation from Derek haunted every corner of my mind. Valerie had betrayed me, not just emotionally, but in ways I couldn't fathom. I had been so blind. She had been living this life without me, and I hadn't even seen the signs. The words, "I'm sorry, I just can't do this anymore," echoed in my head, but now they meant something different. They meant nothing. They were a lie. The next morning, I couldn't focus. I couldn't think straight. All I could do was replay that conversation over and over, trying to piece together how it had all gone wrong. How had I not seen what was happening right under my nose? Around noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to do something. I had to confront her. I needed answers, closure, something. The uncertainty gnawed at me like a relentless, biting cold. I didn't waste time. I grabbed my jacket and got into my car. I drove to the apartment she'd moved into after leaving me, hoping I might catch her. When I arrived, the place looked quiet, too quiet. There were no cars in the parking lot, and the blinds were drawn. A part of me hoped I was wrong, that maybe she was just out. Maybe the place was empty. But I knew that wasn't the case. I rang the doorbell. No answer. I rang it again, a little louder this time, my heart pounding. Seconds passed. Then, the door creaked open, and there she was. Valerie. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I could see the hesitation in her eyes, the guilt. Or maybe it was just a mix of everything. She looked tired, worn out, like she hadn't slept in days. The woman who had been so full of life and energy now seemed like a shadow of herself. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice soft but defensive. "I need to talk to you," I said, my voice coming out sharper than I meant it to. The anger was bubbling up, but I was holding it back. I didn't want to yell. I didn't want to lose control. I just needed answers. She sighed, stepping back from the door. "I don't think there's much to talk about, Sam." I could see the wall she had put up. It was as if she had already decided this conversation was over before it had even begun. I stepped inside anyway, not willing to leave without at least saying what I needed to say. "Don't do this, Valerie," I said, my voice breaking. "I need to know why. Why did you do this to me? To us? We were fine. Or at least, I thought we were." She didn't meet my eyes. Instead, she turned away, walking toward the couch and sitting down, her hands folded in her lap. "You really don't understand, do you?" she muttered. "Understand what? That you've been seeing someone else? That you've been lying to me for months?" The words came out before I could stop them. My chest tightened, and I could feel my hands starting to shake. "I deserve more than this, Valerie. We deserved more than this." She finally looked up at me. Her eyes were empty, cold. She wasn't the woman I had fallen in love with. This was someone else. A stranger. "I never wanted to hurt you, Sam. But I couldn't keep pretending. I couldn't keep lying to you, to myself. I've been unhappy for a long time. It's not something I wanted to do, but I had no choice. I just couldn't keep going like this." I was speechless. I had expected an explanation, some kind of reasoning, but not this. "Unhappy?" I repeated, as if hearing the word would somehow change its meaning. "How could you have been unhappy when we were? When I was doing everything for you? I gave you everything, Valerie." She closed her eyes, her voice growing quieter. I know you did. But it wasn't enough. It never was. I needed more than what you could give me. I needed something I found in Derek. Someone who could understand me in ways you didn't. I never wanted to hurt you, but I couldn't keep going on like this. I had to choose myself. Her words cut deep. It wasn't just the betrayal. It wasn't just the fact that she had been with someone else. It was the realization that, no matter what I had done, no matter how much I had tried, it was never enough. She had made a choice, and I wasn't in it. She had picked Derek over me, picked herself over everything we had built together. I stood there, frozen. So what now? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. What happens now? She stood up, taking a deep breath. Now, we move on. I've already moved on, Sam. I'm not coming back. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The finality in her voice left no room for hope. There was no second chance. There was no maybe, or let's talk about this later. She had already made her decision. She was gone. And with that, the door closed behind me for the last time. It felt as though something inside me had broken, something I couldn't fix. And as I walked away from her apartment, I realized I wasn't just walking away from Valerie. I was walking away from everything I thought I knew about love, about trust, about us. Everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, had just shattered, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. The following days passed in a haze, a mix of numbness and disbelief. Valerie was gone, and for the first time in my life, I had no idea who I was. I went through the motions, work, eating, sleeping, but none of it felt real. It was like I was watching myself from the outside, just another person living in a world I didn't belong to anymore. Then, one evening, something unexpected happened. I was sitting at home, staring blankly at the TV, when there was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, but I dragged myself off the couch anyway. As I opened the door, my heart stopped. It was Derek, the man who had taken Valerie from me. He stood there, awkwardly shifting his weight from one foot to the other, his hands stuffed deep in his pockets. His face was a mix of guilt and something else I couldn't quite place. Maybe pity, maybe something more. I need to talk to you, he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. I felt a surge of anger flood my chest, but I kept it under control. What are you doing here? I managed to say, my voice colder than I intended. I know you probably hate me, Derek said, looking down for a moment. I don't blame you for that. I need to explain. I wanted to slam the door in his face. I wanted to tell him to leave, to never come near me again. But something about his tone, the sincerity in his eyes, stopped me. Against my better judgment, I stepped aside. Fine. Come in, I said, though I didn't mean it. He walked in, taking a seat on the couch without waiting for me to offer. I didn't sit down. I couldn't. The tension was suffocating. I stood by the door, waiting for him to say something. Anything. To explain the mess he had gotten us both into. I never meant for it to happen this way, he began, his hands now clenched in his lap. I really didn't. But I don't think you've heard the full story. Valerie, she never told you everything. I crossed my arms, trying to keep my composure, but I could feel my patience wearing thin. Then tell me, Derek, what did she leave out? What's the part one didn't get? Derek hesitated for a moment, as if he was weighing whether or not to continue. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quieter this time. I wasn't supposed to get involved with her. At first, we were just friends. But after a while, things changed. I wasn't the one who pushed for this. It was Valerie. She was the one who wanted more. She said you weren't enough for her anymore, that you were too focused on your work, that you didn't see her. She was already emotionally checked out before I even came into the picture. His words hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't sure how to process what he had just said. Valerie had told him all this? About me? About us? I could feel my jaw tighten as I tried to stay calm. So you just swooped in, huh? I said, my voice dripping with bitterness. You didn't even care that she was with me? I didn't want to be the one to hurt you, Sam, Derek said, his eyes dark with regret. I didn't want to be involved in any of this. But she pushed me. She made it clear she wasn't happy with you anymore. She wanted something more, and I was there. I didn't know what to say. I felt the anger rising again, but now there was something else there too. Sadness, maybe? A deep sense of betrayal that I had no idea how to deal with. The woman I had trusted, the woman I had loved, had turned her back on me, and I couldn't even blame Derek. This is ridiculous, I muttered, pacing around the room. All this time, I thought I was doing everything right. I thought I was enough. But she never said a word. She just left. Derek stood up, looking at me with a mixture of sympathy and regret. I didn't come here to make things worse. I came because I thought you should know the truth. Valerie's made her choice. But it wasn't you. It wasn't about you. It was about her. I stood there in silence, trying to process what he had said. Valerie had made her choice, and it had nothing to do with me. But that didn't make it hurt any less. In fact, it made it worse. She had left me without a second thought, without a word of explanation. Why are you telling me this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Derek seemed to hesitate, as if he was unsure how to answer. I don't know. Maybe because I want you to know that it wasn't your fault, that you didn't do anything wrong. I don't know what happened between you two, but I don't want you to think that you failed. You didn't. His words were like a small balm for a wound that had festered for far too long. It didn't fix anything, but it was a start. Why does it matter now? I asked, my anger deflating as the numbness took over again. Why come here now? Derek looked at me, his face serious. Because I don't want to be the guy who just walked away. I wanted to at least try to make this right. For you. I didn't respond. I didn't know how to respond. After a long pause, Derek nodded. I'm sorry, Sam. I really am. And with that, he walked out the door, leaving me alone with the mess Valerie had left behind. The night Derek left, I sat in the same chair, staring at the door for what felt like hours. My mind raced, struggling to make sense of everything that had just been laid out in front of me. Valerie's betrayal was now a fact, but hearing it from him, made it feel all the more real. It wasn't just her choice, it was their choice. Together, I could still hear Derek's words echoing in my mind. It wasn't about you. It was about her. I couldn't understand it. If it wasn't about me, then why did I feel like I was the one who had been discarded so easily? Why did it feel like my whole world had just collapsed, piece by piece? The days that followed were a blur. I threw myself into work, hoping it would numb the ache, but it didn't. It never did. Every time I tried to focus on something, the image of Valerie and Derek together, laughing, talking, living a life without me, invaded my thoughts. I couldn't escape it. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. My phone rang. The number on the screen was unfamiliar, but something inside told me I had to pick it up. Sam. The voice on the other end was hesitant, but familiar. It was Valerie. I almost dropped my phone. Valerie. I couldn't hide the shock in my voice. What do you want? There was a long pause before she spoke again, her voice quieter this time. We need to talk. I felt a surge of anger rush through me, but at the same time, part of me was desperate for answers. I didn't want to hear it, but I needed to hear it. I needed to understand why she had done this. I don't know if there's anything left to say, I said, my voice colder than I intended. She sighed. I know this isn't easy, but I need you to listen. I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking hands. Fine, let's talk. We agreed to meet that evening, and as I walked to the cafe where we had arranged to meet, I had no idea what to expect. I wasn't sure if I was ready for whatever was about to come, but I had no choice. I needed closure. I needed to know what had really happened. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at a table near the window, looking out at the street. As I approached, she didn't even look up. I stood there for a moment, watching her, feeling like I was about to dive into an unknown, dark place. Finally, she looked up, and for the first time in weeks, I saw something in her eyes. Remorse, maybe. Or maybe just exhaustion. Her face was pale, drawn. She hadn't looked like this the last time we spoke. I didn't know if you'd come, she said softly, pushing the coffee cup in front of her toward me. I sat down, my heart hammering in my chest. Why are you doing this, Valerie? Why now? She didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the edge of the cup as if she was stalling, as if the words she was about to say were too heavy to bear. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes filled with a kind of sadness that made my chest tighten. I never wanted to hurt you, Sam. I still care about you. I do. But I don't love you anymore. The words hit me like a slap. She didn't love me anymore. I wanted to scream, to ask how it had gotten to this point, but all I could do was sit there, numb. I thought we were happy, I said quietly, my voice breaking. I thought we were okay. We were, she whispered. But I wasn't. And I couldn't keep pretending. I should have told you sooner, but I didn't know how. I didn't want to hurt you, but I was already gone before I even left. I could feel the sting of her words, each one deeper than the last. She was right. She had already checked out, long before I ever realized it. I had been living in a lie, blind to the truth of what was happening in front of me. I never thought it would end this way, she continued, her voice trembling. I didn't want this. I never wanted to hurt you, but I wasn't happy. I couldn't be. I felt like I was suffocating. All these questions I had, about why, about what went wrong, about the future, seemed to hang in the air, unanswered. Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why didn't you give us a chance to fix it? She shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. Because I was already done, Sam. I was already checked out. And I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to come back to you. Her words felt like a final curtain, closing on something I thought was a part of my future. I had spent years with her, building something I thought was real. But in the end, it was all just smoke and mirrors. The silence between us stretched for what felt like an eternity. Her words had already carved deep into my chest, leaving a hollow space where everything we once shared used to be. I looked at her, my heart heavy, but somewhere deep inside, I could feel something else stirring, something I hadn't felt in weeks. As much as I wanted to wallow in the pain, I couldn't deny that the weight of this conversation, the truth, had set something free within me. For the first time in months, I felt the slightest glimmer of hope. Maybe not for us, but for me. I can't change what's happened, Valerie said, her voice quiet, resigned. But I need you to know, Sam, that I do care. I always will. And I'm sorry. I took a deep breath, trying to find the words that had eluded me for so long. The pain still stung, but now, it felt more like a scar than an open wound. I don't know if I'll ever understand why this happened, but I think, deep down, I knew it was coming. I said, my voice steady, surprising even me. I've been so caught up in trying to fix something that was already broken that I forgot about myself. I forgot to live for me. Valerie looked at me, a mixture of sadness and relief in her eyes. I didn't want you to lose yourself, Sam. That was never my intention. But I see it now. I see how much you've been struggling. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything that had been said lingering in the air. Then, finally, I spoke again. You're right. It's been hard, and I don't know what's next. But I think it's time I start figuring that out. For me. Valerie smiled weakly. I'm glad you can say that. You deserve to find peace, Sam. You deserve to be happy again. I nodded, feeling the first flicker of freedom I'd felt in a long time. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be days when the memories of her, of us, would haunt me. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I was sinking. I felt like I could breathe again. I don't know where life is going to take me, I said, standing up and taking one last look at her. But I know it's time to move forward. She stood up too, her expression softening. I hope you find what you're looking for, Sam. I will, I said, a small smile tugging at my lips for the first time in ages. And you will too. With that, I turned and walked away from the cafe, from the past, and into a future that was uncertain but full of possibility. For the first time in months, I felt a spark of excitement for what lay ahead. It wasn't the end. It was just the beginning.